Welcome back to Macabre Mondays, where mystery meets the macabre with your favorite deadly duo. I'm Ale.
And I'm Tom.
Your guides through the strange, the sinister, and the spooky. And hey, if you're jumping in here and this is your first episode of Macabre Mondays, trust me when I tell you, you're going to want to hit pause and go back to part 1. Because we're diving straight back into the darkness and you don't want to miss the setup. There's so much information to this case in part 1. You don't want to feel lost. I hate feeling like that. But for those who were with us last week, welcome back to part 2 of the Fox Hollow Farm murders with Herb Baumeister. I know we left you guys off on a cliffhanger, and as much as I hate those myself, I'm happy to know that you're back. That's all that matters, really. So, how are we feeling so far? Is everyone still processing everything? I know I am. How are you feeling, Tom?
Honestly, this has been a lot to take in. And now I'm so eager to dive into part 2.
Yeah. Okay. Were you surprised when I threw you on a cliffhanger there?
Yeah, that was kind of messed up, to be honest. I think I speak for us listeners as the chief listener and officer, whatever my title is. We were very upset that you made us wait a whole week for additional content.
Oh, well, it's okay, because now we're here today and we're listening to part 2, okay? It's not my fault that this case is absolutely insane and so much has opened up since Herb Baumeister committed suicide. So, yes.
No, for real. And not just because this case deals with so many men, but this case was very, very beefy.
Yes, super beefy. I see what you did there. Okay, there. All right. You think you're so funny. Well, one thing... This is why you should not have the soundboard. But anyways, so one of the things that I wanted to just mention before we dive back into part 2 is that Tom actually found out where in the campus the bones are. Would you like to share?
So they were actually under the hall that, sure enough, that I used to take multiple math and science classes in. And it's kind of fitting. It's one of those things that the minute I found out, I was like, of course it'd be in. Yes, yeah. At UND. It was one of those things the minute I realized, I was like, of course the bones would be underneath this because it's the whole science hall.
Right.
This is where anyone that's studying biology,
right,
crime scenes, forensics, all of those types of classes were in there.
Very on theme.
And then for whatever reason you had math class. I truthfully, I had math classes
math
even
science.
In the health department where all the nursing students were. I really think that for math, they just couldn't figure out where to put us. So they just kept throwing us in different rooms.
Sometimes they used to do, I remember my college, they would throw like the art majors in random until they opened up like an actual art building and design building and all that. But sometimes I'd be like doing an art class next to a chemistry class. I'm like, what? This feels a little funky, but that sounds a little bit more on par with what you're saying that you experienced. Yeah, and we wanted to shout out one of our listeners, Danielle Daniels. She actually had a few classes in that UND building, and she told us that people were certain there was a smell in that building, so I'm kind of not surprised about that, but that some people even stated that they thought it was haunted, you know?
I mean, to be fair, there's a lot of buildings that are old buildings at UND. And I think one of the oldest ones was like 1904.
Right, and then imagine this building houses... I mean, all I know is that they house the bones.
Dead bodies.
Well, the bones from the Fox Hollow Farms. I mean, she said she never saw anything and she never smelled anything, but still, I thought it was so great to hear from somebody that actually went there, and other than you, of course, you know, but who actually can relate to what we're talking about the bones and that they were there for some reason. So I thought that was awesome. Now, before we dive back into part 2, I just want to give you guys a rundown. Remember where we left off? We were back in Indianapolis in the 90s in Hamilton County. There was the AIDS pandemic, lots of fear and stigma around gay community back then. Herb Baumeister is supposedly our guy for the 10,000 bone fragments that were found on Fox Hollow Farms property that he owned. Remember, he committed suicide in Canada. Tom and I played dead bodies. I think we all remember that.
We've been asked by a few people that are close family and friends how to play dead bodies.
Yeah. If you guys need a tutorial, we might just upload one. I don't know, but let us know if you guys. Let us know if we get like 1,000 comments on that. We will reenact how we play dead bodies.
Social media piece.
Yes. So we did leave off part 1 with that question of, is there something else to the story, or maybe someone else?
Oh shit.
Mm-hmm. So
Get the fuck out.
it is believed that he murdered, because we don't have any answers if you think about it, right? We don't know anything of anything. We just know that they're dead, that there's victims
not
there.
a zero.
Yeah, there's bone fragments in the back. There's people that died there, but we don't know how. So it's believed that he murdered his victims in the pool area. Now, how does he murder them at the pool and then drag them into the woods all by himself? So that's where the theory of, even if he was the killer, how the fuck does he drag these bodies? And this many at what, like 100 to 200 yards out from his house to the woods in the backyard?
Wheelbarrow?
Oh man, that's a good question. But I mean,
a dolly?
I don't know. They didn't really see anything like that. Well, that doesn't really come up, but that's
Furniture dolly?
That's interesting.
Got straps.
So one of the theories is that clearly there's no way he could have done that alone, right?
Yeah.
So with that being said, right? So one of the theories is that there's no way that he was probably able to do it alone.
True. True.
I mean, valid point if you think about it. Now, let's fast forward to today. Actually, last year, 2024, because it's 2025 now. The current homeowner of Fox Hollow Farm is called Rob Grave, which is ironic because it sounds like he's robbing graves, but that's his name.
Okay.
Yeah. And when he went to go look at the property, it was very evident that no one was living there because he noticed that the pastures were like 4 feet tall. Him and his wife, Vicky, go to take a look at this property and they were like in love with it, right? But they also know the history that comes with it.
Do they know the history that's coming with this house?
Yeah, they know the history. But again, they were just like, you know what? It's a beautiful home. It is. It's an absolutely gorgeous home. I could look past that for 18 and a half acres.
I mean, what's it like having potentially around 800 plus ghosts that are possibly haunting you?
Right, exactly.
Not
and
a
also,
big deal.
right. And also, like, he lived there, but whatever.
We'll burn 50-gallon drums of sage.
Exactly. So funny that you say that because before they moved in, they actually had a Catholic priest bless the house and an Indian shaman bless the land to make sure.
Yo, I'd be having everything bless the damn land.
We'd be doing that shit quarterly, okay? He'd be on like layaway. I don't care.
I'd be like, Archbishop Daniel, I know you aren't in Indiana anymore, but I need you to come bless the house.
Come back home.
Can you get Pope Francis out here?
So he actually happened to notice when he moved in that 2 marble faucets were missing. And so he actually went looking for them to added back to the house.
Yeah.
And when he actually went looking for these 2 marble faucets that kind of fit the same vibe, look, and theme, he found the exact knobs that were missing that came from the house. And it was on an auction site for murder items. Now, to me, I was like, that's weird, right? Again, I find it strange because
how did it come into their possession? Got questions.
But you just got to think about it. I was trying to look anything and everywhere about what happened, right? Like after this happened, this happened in 1996 when he finally got caught and when he died and all that. And we're talking 2024. Like this, I couldn't find anything. Like, what did Julie do with the home? There really wasn't much information.
Years.
Yeah. So for all we know, she could have still owned the home these last 30 years, or maybe the home was just kind of, I don't know. I really can't even tell you that.
Yeah.
So to me, I was like, okay, maybe there was just some people that broke in, stole stuff, because there is a fascination, obviously, with murder. I per se would not want to own anything that was touched by like a serial killer or I don't know. That's just a me thing.
Well,
right?
think about it. It's like Elvis's bathroom, like his bedroom. Like everyone wants to go there.
Right.
But it's been off limits to everyone,
right? Because that's
workers.
Right. And that's literally, that's Elvis's
It's just
area.
that fascination thing.
Right. But it's a thing. And to me, I'm like, totally get it, but I just wouldn't want to own something of that. Yeah. But again, there's a fascination out there. I mean, he ends up finding it on this auction site for murder weapons, like murder stuff. So that's where I was just like, I kind of find it weird, but I'm like, maybe somebody broke in at one of those points and stole it and tried to make some money off of it or something. It's the notorious Herb Baumeister's home, right? So whatever. So now Rob actually wrote a book in 2019 called The Horror of Fox Hollow Farms. Everybody go check it out. It's actually really good. So imagine all the information that he has obtained from living there and everything he learned about Herb himself in the story. And I mean, it's where he lives now.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because in the documentary, he pulls out a binder that when he moved in, they took photos of how the home looked before. So the home was still furnished too.
Oh.
Yeah. That's why I'm like,
if you think about it, typically if you're the wife and you're dealing with something like this,
right,
prime example, Jared Fogle. He was in
True,
Indiana.
valid.
His wife probably abandoned the house as well, left everything in there, and was like, I want to detach from all this. I'll sell the house with everything in it.
Right. So that's why to me, I'm like, okay, that's why I don't know if she still continued living there, if the kids still live. I don't know. But all I know is that he actually took photos. He pulls out a binder, and he ended up he renovated the whole, like, not the whole house per se, but he renovated inside. Like, nothing really looks the same as it used to when they lived there and such. Which I would have done the same thing. I mean, thanks.
Makes sense.
Right. Some people kind of find it weird, kind of macabre that he's living there. He's living in the same house that Herb used to live there, that the murders were being taken place. I mean, if you think about it, he's using the same toilet Herb used at one point, sleeping in the same room, probably.
That type of thing.
I mean, I wouldn't, to me, I'd be like, whatever. I'd be like, cool, that's in the past. But some people find that weird. And they also feel like it's interesting that he deep into the story.
Fascinated with everything.
Yeah, but I would be too, especially if I'm living there and there's and there's no answers, and I'm kind of like sort of a little gateway to that, to be able to give a glimpse of more like
if you have unrestricted access to your own property now,
right,
where a lot of murders, a lot of unanswered questions are,
right,
I'd do the same shit.
Yeah. So over the years, it's funny that you say that, because over the years he still is finding bones on the property. He found like a femur bone. I mean, there's other bone fragments, but imagine that, right? Yeah. So he still like walks around the property. He still finds stuff. He's also very much, he even believes that Herb does haunt the home, but he doesn't think too much of it because
I wouldn't want to either. Yeah,
and he says, like, as long as I'm not being bothered, my family's not being bothered, and we're left alone, like, I really don't care about whatever else happens. Which, valid, I would feel the same way. Yep. Like, to me, he sees it the same way that we're talking about it, which is very much like, the house didn't do anything, it's just the person that lived here, so why would the house...
Yeah.
So now get this. Rob is actually super open about the whole thing. Clearly, if you couldn't tell. And so he knows, like I said, there's a lot of questions about the case and the story itself. And so he's actually totally cool if people want to come and check out the house. Not like just, I wouldn't message him and be like, hey, what's up? Like, you got barbecue?
Hey, yo,
you got barbecue going on? But he's cool with, like, having paranormal investigators coming over and investigating any paranormal activity. There's a lot of people that have done that. If I'm not wrong, I think Zach Baggins might have done that. Let me see.
Yo, that's freaking dope. Side note, Zach Baggins drives my dream car, which is a Porsche GT3 RS, matte black.
I'm so glad.
With gold rims.
I'm so glad about that you shared that, because there's somebody out there that's probably listening and is like, dude, me fucking do, bro. Fuck Zach Baggins. No, imagine. So I just looked it up. He did, like I said, he did cover an episode on Ghost Adventures on Fox Hollow Farm, and it was an episode in 2014.
Did the ghost just...
Aaron, Herb's over there. Go in there.
I think Herb just said, kill Aaron.
Stop. So... like I said, so he's cool with having people come and do like any investigating or documentaries or whatever, right? He even spoke and reached out to Mark Goodyear. Remember him?
Yeah.
And he actually invited him over to the farm. He was like, you want to come, whatever, yada, yada, there's, And he ended up walking Mark around the property, and Mark was just spilling all these details about Herb, right? So he's like talking all about him.
Interesting.
So later... Rob's telling these paranormal investigators that want to do an investigative paranormal documentary on the property. Their names are Jane Gerlach and Russ Walker. He ends up telling them, like, hey, you know who you guys should talk to? You should talk to Mark. He'd be a great resource. He's one of the survivors of Herb. Yeah, and he's the only one that made it out alive, and he's the reason why he got... What's going on?
Oh, no, I feel like...
you're scaring me.
Foreshadowing. Yeah,
he's he's the one who told the police, yada, yada stuff.
I'm getting eager.
Okay, so they call Mark, and guess what? Mark changes his whole story.
Get the fuck out.
He admits that he made up the original story that he told the police. The one where he was like, I barely escaped. I let him. Okay. So it turns out that he was actually dating Herb for 2 years.
Bitch. I'm sorry. Fucking knew it.
And that he made up the escape story. You didn't know it. You just figured it out.
Nah, it just clicked. It clicked.
Just now.
Freaking clicked.
And so he states that he made up the escape story to just get the cops to search the property because he wanted them to find everything. But he claims that he wasn't involved in anything. He says that he
then
never...
how the fuck do you know?
He says he never went out. We don't know anything yet. All we know is that he escaped.
He literally told the cops, though. Oh,
Yeah.
go look at all this. So how the fuck you know all this shit?
Just wait. So he says that he never went out into the woods with Herb, but that Herb did tell him all the gory details of what he did to his victims. Which, come on, bro.
I mean, who knows? Maybe it's a kink.
Like, what? It's at this point, it's too much. I can't even preface this under kink.
How I killed this person?
No, at this point, I'm just not okay with that. You know, we don't kink shame, but I'm kink and shaming you right now. If that's a kink, you're fucked up.
Why do you think I'm going bullshit? The dude definitely fucking knew. He was part of it.
You've got some shit going on. If that's a kink, that's fucking weird. Okay, so I'm going to place a trigger warning here because the next section I'm going to read is going to be a little bit icky. Jane has a recorded phone call with Mark Goodyear, and I think she's got a couple, but this is the one that she talks to. And we're talking, this phone call was in September of 2023, so super recent, right? And in this audio recording, Mark says that Herb would smell of burnt hair before coming back into his bedroom, and that he'd use a special tool to pull the teeth out of the skulls of his victim, and he tossed them down the hall like Tic Tacs.
What the fuck?
I know what I mean. Like, I'll never look at Tic Tacs the same way again, but apparently that's what Herb said. Mark states that Herb had some kind of teeth fetish and it just somehow stimulated him. But Mark claims that he didn't think Herb was a monster, and he somehow convinced himself that it wasn't really Herb doing these things. Okay, first off, your story's all over the place. I just don't believe you anymore. You're fucking weird.
Who the fuck is okay with somebody killing people and then throwing their fucking teeth down the hall like Tic Tacs?
And being like, I just didn't want to think that. I didn't want to let it get to me. I don't know. That's
it's
why
just
to me,
a kink. I'm not kink shaming.
Yeah, I just find it really weird. So Jane and Russ are like, okay, this is starting to go down a deeper turn than we were anticipating. Like, we're here to do a documentary on like the whole story.
We're learning shit that we were not ready for.
Yeah, which they actually say in the documentary, they talk about how it seems like we're getting to the realm that the police need to know about this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they take this information straight to our boy, Jeff Jellison, at the coroner's office, right?
As they should.
And at this point, Mark is just chirping, tweeting, trigger fingers to Jane,
What the fuck?
sending her message after messages, and she shows the messages, right? So clearly he knows more than he's letting on. So next, Jane and Russ end up getting Mark to come to Fox Hollow Farms to be a part of their documentary, their paranormal investigation documentary.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, I can't emphasize this. We need to watch it. Whoever's listening, you guys need to watch the Hulu documentary too, because there's just something about you're actually watching Mark on this video.
Explain this shit.
Explaining. He's walking.
What the fuck, man?
Yes, he's literally, and I can't, due to copyright, I can't really, certain clips I can probably post and stuff like that, but there's just so much footage and photos of everything that I'm talking about. Like, they show the documentary that Jane and Russ ended up filming, and it's literally Mark walking them through like he's a fucking realtor selling this home.
What the
So to me, I'm like,
man?
one, you said that you only stayed there one night, right? You've only been there one time. And then you say that you've been dating him for 2 years. And then you say, but I'm not a part of anything. But then you come and you're fucking
and you
walking
know everything about
every
this
nook
house?
and camera about the, yes, exactly.
What
And-
the fuck?
Exactly.
Man?
Odd, right? So now you won't see Mark's face in the documentary because he told Jane and Russ like that he didn't want his face to be in the camera or to be videoed, and so they respected that. And up to this point, we don't have any like updated photos of Mark because every interview he's ever done, I think he's only done like 2.
Yeah.
The first interview, he did an interview like years back with A&E, and he didn't even put like his real name. He put not an alias, but it was like Roger Allen's friend or something.
Yeah.
And they blacked out his face. So no joke, he's sounding like a realtor, like selling this home to them. And one of the things that I want to know in that footage is that there's a part where he shows where Herb kept tons and tons of videotapes that he recorded. Now, those videotapes aren't there, obviously, but he's basically recounting what he remembers he saw at the time. So keep that in mind, okay?
Keeping in mind.
Keep in mind. So it's just so eerie and strange because knowing what happened there and how he might be the only missing piece because no one knows anything else about Herb.
No one else knows this much.
Nothing. Nobody knows this much. All we know is what Mark is fucking saying. We know like he's the only one that knows about Herb's double life. Now, there's a crucial part though in Jane and Russ's footage when they're in the backyard and Mark is talking about how when he was in the backyard, there was a huge pile of burned bones right next to the patio. Like you could see it perfectly from the living room window, he says. And apparently Herb had skulls hanging on the side of the house. I know.
What?
I know. I'm like, seriously, dude? Like, so you're saying that you saw that in that one night that you were at this guy's house, because you're saying you dated him for 2 years, but you've only been here once.
Great damn memory.
Right. And you're like, nah, I don't believe he's a monster. And you're telling me you weren't scared, and you're telling me that you didn't feel threatened. Like, come on, dude.
No, not buying it.
You were clearly in on this. And also, I just find it weird because he says that it's right outside the patio. Like, the bones that they find are in the woods.
In the woods.
So what do you
not
mean
even
the
right there.
patio? Right, exactly. And it just sounds so extreme. Like when I was watching it, I was like, why is this giving me like King Kong Skull Island vibes? Like, it was really giving me that, right? Super extreme. And one thing to note that I just want to mention, because Rob Graves mentions that he's a very big, like Mark is a big storyteller. He's very...
Animated?
Yes, animated. And so if you remember, like I said, the 3 areas that were sectioned off are nowhere near the patio. Like they're not. They're 100 yards that way. So Mark is saying that there was a burned pile right outside the patio pavement, and that just doesn't really add up because there's no bones that are found there.
There was nothing ever found there.
Right. At the time, the woods were actually closer to the house. It seems like they actually expanded it
that
to like
sense.
Right. But still, it just doesn't make sense because there's no bones found there. There's only bones found like 100 yards from the house. So the bodies had to have been dragged and burned there. Like they had to have been dragged from the house and burned in the yard because there's just no way. Like I said, they're found, like the closest bone fragments that were found were 100 yards from the house. And I just want to give everybody a visual perception here, because to me, when I hear 100 yards, I'm like, what is that? Right? Like
a football field.
Okay. Well, 100 yards is actually equivalent to the same height as the Statue of Liberty for our U.S. listeners. And for our overseas listeners, that's almost the equivalent to Big Ben. That's located in London. So that's a far fucking hike. That's far. You're dragging bodies from your house all the way to the fucking tippy top of the Statue of Liberty. And just so anybody knows, the Statue of Liberty is also a forced perspective, right? You see from afar and it looks ginormous, but when you get there, it's not as big.
All right, Miss Creative.
I'm just saying, because I was shocked when I went to Disney and I saw the castle was not at all how you thought it was.
For everyone international or stateside, a football field.
A football field. So in the documentary, Jane says that she goes back and forth. You know, one day she's convinced that he's involved, and the next day that she just thinks he's making it all up. And Rob Graves even says that, like I told you, Mark is just a very interesting storyteller. So Jane ends up saying that he was just kind of odd because he would text her weird random riddles. Okay? This is one of the riddles that he sent her. I am not a victim. I was never attacked. I am not a murderer. Exactly what am I? Tell me what I am. Not an accomplice, not a victim, never attacked. What am I? What the fuck is that, right?
What the fuck?
Okay, so part of me, when I heard that and I was reading all about it, I'm like, I don't think he's all there. But clearly, the fingers are pointing. We're talking fingers, toes, eyes, noses, everything's pointing at him.
An accomplice.
But he's saying, I'm not an accomplice. I'm not a victim. I've never attacked. What am I? Okay. Which, I don't know. Good point. But what kind of friend, though? Are you a friend that's okay with your friend doing this? But who knows, right? So I'm gonna piss you off in this next.
Oh my.
The next.
Dude, I don't think I've cussed so much on one of our episodes until this episode.
I told you were gonna be frustrated. Now, there's a police file transcript of a phone call from Herb Baumeister's business attorney, Todd Egloff. He called Todd Urich, which is one of the investigators on the case, on July 5th of 1996. So this is about 2 days after Herb killed himself. And he said, I got a call from Herb last November 29th at my office. He said he'd gotten involved with someone named Mark Goodyear, and that this guy was a really bad dude, a dangerous guy. I left Julie a letter behind a picture frame in our house and left some stuff that would give you more information on Mark in a file in his office at the store. He hoped Mark wouldn't come after his family, saying he'd been kind of stalking him too. He even woke up one time to Mark strangling him at one point. And now that Herb's gone, I guess I have some concerns about this Mark Goodyear person.
Holy shit.
Yep. So that's what his business attorney
And
called.
remember, Mark was the one that literally told the whole story of, oh, he has a strangulation fetish. What
Weird.
the fuck?
Right? Weird. Yeah. So then on October 25th, but
I'm trying to hang on.
I know it's going to kill you because it killed me. Like I was shedding a couple tears when I was researching this again because I remember when I first learned it. It's just such a sad fucking case. But anyways, so on October 25th of 1996, John Fulham was also interviewed by the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office. He said, so this is another transcript, okay? Now, these are people coming in and being interviewed by the police. He said that he met Herb at the Metro Bar around 9 p.m. on July 4th of 1993, and he followed Herb back to his house. He remembers the road to Fox Hollow Farms. I'm telling you, he is so detailed and vivid about everything he's saying. He's so descriptive, right? That he is fucking naming shit to a T. He's detailing the car to the T. He's detailing the location to the T. Everything, right?
Showing that he knows his shit.
Right. So he describes the truck that Herb was driving. He describes the house. He even to the T talks about the fencing he saw. So when he said that when they got to Herb's house, they got out of their cars. And so the police shows John a photo of Herb to make an ID, right? Like, oh, so this is the guy you saw, right? And John says, no, that's not Herb. He says that the guy's name was either Michael or Mark, and that he said he was house sitting for his boss.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Now, the description of the male that John tells the police about the guy he was with and the truck that he was driving matches Mark to the T. And if you put 2 and 2 together, now that makes John another person, apparently, who got away from Fox Hollow Farms, but clearly Mark in this instance, since he never met Herb.
Yeah.
So this is fucking weird, right?
Yeah.
That's strange. Now, there's an updated police interview video with Mark from the initial investigation at Fox Hollow Farms when they were finding the bones. They brought him in again. Mary Wilson, the lead missing persons detective, is in there too. So it's literally like the smallest interrogation room, and they've got Mark sitting in the corner chair, and there's like 3 detectives. Mary's one of them, right? Okay. So they kind of have him cornered, but it's just he's just sitting there. So one of the detectives asked Mark about the encounter with Herb, how it was at his house again, right? So he's like, tell me the story again. Mark recounts his story again, but this time he's talking about the sexual strangulation. And he describes how Herb's eyes were bugging out when he was like sexually strangulating him, apparently, right? And that his lips were turning purple. Essentially, if you think about it, which that's what I was Googling too, and I know my FBI agent's like, what the fuck are you Googling? But that's not really erotic asphyxiation. That's straight up strangling. Yeah. You're fucking strangling someone. If you see their eyes bugging out, their lips are turning purple, that's not
right. Erotic strangulation is more of like you don't technically cut off the person's airway, right?
Erotic asphyxiation isn't that. Yes, exactly. So he's straight up strangling him. So enter badass cold case detective Steve Ainsworth, the guy with the handlebar mustache.
Nice.
Total badass.
I bet he drives a Harley.
I don't know, but in the documentary, he was lifting the heavy weights. And I was like, bro, fuck yeah. So he's a cold case detective. I think he's retired because right now he's just consulting on this case. He's the one that's breaking down all this footage, all this evidence, shedding new light. And if it wasn't for him and people like Jeff Jellison, they wouldn't be able to make a lot of the connections that are being made right now. Because again, the police aren't investigating this case anymore. They say it's open, they said it's there, but nobody's doing anything. Nobody's doing anything. And now, I just want to state that Jeff Jellison calls him the Michael Jordan of detectives. This guy, Steve Ainsworth, he was even on the John Benet Ramsey case, okay? He has a long streak of solving infamous cold cases. Like this guy is, we're talking like Jeff Jellison even mentioned, he's like
MVP.
Yeah, like he's like,
Hall
if
of Famer.
Steve Ainsworth is on a case, like that's just getting fucking cracked.
So can we put him on Zodiac?
Oh my God. Steve, if you're there, we should talk.
Zodiac. I don't know why I always say Zodiac.
Yeah, I don't know. You sound so like silly when you say it like that. Steve talks in the documentary that the only way someone would even know how you would look after getting choked like that is if they've seen it or done it before. And that makes sense because to me, I have no idea I didn't even know that that's even a thing, right? I only see what I see in movies, and that's not really what you see in movies. In the police interview, Mark even says that he knows because he's done it with the jugular vein before. And he adds so much detail for someone who claims they only did it one time.
What the fuck?
Yep. So Mark, in the interview, he continues saying that he was scared of Herb. So after he's saying all this shit, he's scared of Herb. That Herb was giving off wacko vibes. But if you're so scared, why would you stay?
Why are you still hanging around?
Yes. Why would you stay? Why are you still dating him for 2 years? That's what we know, right? He even says that he invited Mark over for dinner after that encounter that he had that night. So why the fuck would you invite him to your house if you're so scared of him? You think he's wacko.
Nah.
He even states that he gave him his phone number. He invited him over for dinner, so clearly he has his address. But the detectives, they're not really interrogating him. They're not really questioning him. They're not saying anything. There's so many holes in his story from clearly the first time that he came in to interview with them to now. And you could just see them in the interrogation video. They're just like, okay, so, and they're just like, they're like entertaining it, but they're not entertaining it in the way where they're trying to catch him in a lie.
Yeah.
And there's lies after lies where it's like, it's so sad to see that they're not taking it serious. Exactly. So Steve mentions in the doc that the film that Jane and Russ did of Mark, there's parts where Mark says he knew Herb had a gun in the downstairs bathroom, but he never saw him with a gun. And Russ in the video asks him if he saw the gun there, and Mark says, no, not that night. Dog, I thought you've only been there one night. I thought you've only gone to that house one time. Oh. Clearly you haven't, because also...
That's weird. I'm just saying, this to me straight up says, you're the murderer. You are the murderer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you're in cahoots. You were in cahoots,
exactly,
right?
Yeah.
And if you think about it, John Fulham said that he went to Fox Hollow Farms with who we thought was Herb until he got out of the car and he was like, no, that's not Herb, that's Mark. Yeah. So you've clearly been there before and you're saying you're house sitting for your boss. Like, come on. Just stop. Like, bro, it was like fucking pissing me off when I kept like researching and scripting this. There's just so many inconsistencies, clearly. But in that same interview, he says he only met Herb once. Then later he says, hey, come over for dinner. So they did see each other twice. You see what I mean? Like, that's just a common...
Any good detective that's trying to solve the case is going to go after that because that's a dead giveaway.
Right, exactly. No, completely agree. So clearly there were more nights, but he never told the police any of this in the police interview, essentially, right? But again, never told the police any of anything in the police interview. And every time anybody talks to him, the story changes. Mark is just like a walking red flag. Mark is a walking arrest me flag at this point.
Literally.
Now, there's another police transcript from an interview with a man named Leroy Bray. Now, he was a player off and on in the downtown gay community. And it states that he went to a surprise party at Fox Hollow Farms. Now, he stated that he dated Herb like on and off. Okay. So he was a player, you know, he was chilling, he was looking good, he was doing his thing.
Pop the collar.
And so he said that he went to a surprise party of some sort at Fox Hollow Farms and that they offered him a whiskey and Coke, but he didn't want any alcohol, so he just went ahead and drank Coke. They talked him into drinking a whiskey and Coke for the second drink. And he's like, I think they definitely laced it because what happened next, he was asked to step outside and he's like, oh, I guess we're having a barbecue or something. And so he gets out there and he's introduced to a bunch of people, including Mark Goodyear.
Okay.
Go to the back patio. My God. They go to the back patio and they tell him that they're going to do some theatrical plays, something fun, you know. Okay.
Weird.
Yeah. So he's like, oh, it's a game. Like, we're just going to have some fun. Then a guy comes out with a big raincoat and a mask. And one guy that he recognized as Mark and another guy that he didn't recognize. And so the masked guy in the raincoat walks up and says, hey, baby, what's going on? And then shoots the other guy 3 times and then hits him with a shotgun blast. He then turns the shotgun blast to Leroy and pretty much says like,
what?
Yes. He turns the shotgun to Leroy and then he starts taking off his clothes. And that's when he realizes is that the guy who just shot this man is Herb Baumeister. And he said that he saw Mark holding the guy. So like holding him back. So clearly he was in on that. So we're starting to notice a trend here. Okay. So they have these statements and reports and no one ever followed up with Mark Goodyear about this. And it's sad because they can't even follow up with Leroy because he passed. He's passed. So, and he has such a...
Wait, so he escaped that night?
He did. He ended up running away. Yeah, sorry. So after all that happened, he got like freaked out and he ran. Like he blasted with a friend, his friend Danny. They like ran. So
wait, hold on, real quick.
Yeah.
Were there only 3 guys besides Mark and Herb that night?
He didn't really like specify. There was a party. It was like a surprise party or whatnot that they don't really know what it was about. He was just invited to the party, and there was a bunch of people there. Like there was people there. I don't know how many per se, but Mark was there. Maybe there was 5 plus.
Just that one little bit sounded somewhat familiar to something that I remember hearing years and years ago.
Okay, well, I'm not sure, but that's what Leroy says in his statement. And it's another thing to note too that if you think about it, the minute he saw some shit like that, he ran because he's scared.
I would too.
Yeah, exactly. So they have all these statements and all these reports, but no one ever followed up with Mark Goodyear. And if you think about it, the story that he's saying makes a lot of connections, right?
Yeah.
He says that there's a shotgun. There's found shotgun shells. He said that, he also stated that the guy that they shot was handcuffed. They found handcuffs in the woods.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of really interesting stuff, right? And he also stated that there was I don't know what you call them. It's like a light, like no joke. I guess there must be a plug out in the woods or there's a long ass extension cord and there was a light hung up in the woods. Interesting.
That's weird.
So they have all these statements. They don't follow up with Mark to clear any of these stories, and every report that is about Herb that they have on this case, if you think about it, Mark is somehow mentioned in all of them. Like if you think about it, every single one Mark is mentioned into it. Yeah,
from the start.
Now I'm just telling you, this documentary fucked me up because the last episode of the docu-series, they ended up getting a special appearance interview. Guess who?
Motherfucking Mark.
Motherfucker Mark Goodyear. Yep. So we haven't heard about Mark in a long time, right? And we haven't seen Mark in a long time. Now, ABC News Studio is the one who does the face-to-face interview with Mark Goodyear. So this is the most recent image of Mark Goodyear to this date.
Y'all can't see my face, but he looks like a fucking killer.
He does, right? So that's the most recent image of him. Clearly, over this whole case, his stories have just continued to evolve, right? Nothing ever makes sense. Nothing's ever the same and all that. And I just have to preference that he is just so eerie and strange, a very, very bizarre man. I don't know if it's because he was involved with the horrors that happened at the farm, because clearly there's more to the story than he's letting on to a lot of the story, but we don't know, right? Or
he's basically an open book at this point.
Right. And a part of me, I'm like, is he really a victim? Like, maybe, is he like this because he really was a victim? But I'm like, I don't know. Who knows at this point, right? It also doesn't help that he looks like he reminds me of someone. And I'm like, who is that person that he reminds me of? He reminds me of Heinz Doofenshmirtz from fucking Phineas and Ferb.
Doofenshmirtz Evil Incorporated.
Yes, no, he straight up looks like that. He's just a very bizarre man overall, clearly, right? So I'm going to just sum up this interview in a nutshell because Mark's stories are just all over the place. And there are some key things that he says in his interview on this last episode that I think are important. But please, like I said, go ahead and check out the docuseries itself. On Hulu, it's called Fox Hollow Murders, Playground of a Serial Killer. I also reference there's still a lot of really great information in the 2011 documentary of The Haunting of Fox Hollow Farm. It's on Tubi, which is free. So if you don't have Hulu, you can totally go on there. Honestly, if you have TikTok, somebody's probably streaming that shit for free. So really, you can make it work. But
we don't endorse that.
Oh, yeah. We don't. But anyways, you know what I mean. I'm just going to summarize and just give you the key points of the things that he said that are fucking insane. But the whole time he's laughing, he's being very
animated,
Doofenshmirtz. Yeah. So first thing he says, the minute the interview opens up, this house is so warm and comfortable, it just wraps around you. And that, I know.
You mean like your hands around these people's throats?
Right. Well, my thing to it, I'm like, how is this house so warm and comfortable? I don't know. To me, I'm like, are you nervous? Yeah, if you were a victim, right? I wouldn't want to be at this house. And they actually have him recording, like the interview is actually being recorded right by the pool. So it's kind of ironic to me. Yeah, I thought that was
That's
an interesting,
eerie as fuck.
Eerie, right? And so he ends up just talking about the fact that he's like, this is gonna be the last time that I have this interview. Like, I'm not talking about this anymore. Like, I'm over, right?
Yeah.
People think that I'm a killer, but whatever you guys want to say, whatever. So they start asking him questions about the beginning, pretty much asking him to recount his version of things. And obviously, he gives the most newest, up-to-date version of the story. And
Oh, Lord, here we go.
He says that he met Herb at a bar downtown called 501, and that Herb was staring at the missing person's poster. That's how they started talking, because a lot of the missing people's posters were Mark's friends. And so he ended up getting Herb outside through the back door.
A lot of them were Mark's friends.
Mm-hmm. Ooh. I didn't even realize that. That's true.
I'm sorry.
How would you know of them?
Yeah.
Valid points. That's valid points.
Oh,
Solid.
yeah, they're my friends.
My detective husband. Yeah, that's true.
Easy as trust, too.
That's true.
Hey, come with me to my buddy's place. Mm-hmm. His name's Herb. Don't worry about it.
So he ended up getting Herb outside through the back door and ended up going home with him, right? So this is apparently this is how he met Herb and all that. He even states that the roads that they took to get there. Now remember how he took the police on a wild goose chase trying to find the house?
I don't know how to get there.
Yeah, I don't know how to get there. Come on, get out of here.
No.
So he ends up saying, and the interview ends up asking him like, oh, but you went out with the police that night or whatever, right? And he kind of like, meh. I'm telling you, we have to watch it because the way he like tries to, you could just tell like you're clearly lying about it and there's nothing you can say about it. So anyways, so he says Herb didn't attack him like he originally told the police. He did say Herb was going to try and choke him, but didn't. So that's the only probably accurate thing that I can see. They hung out in the back porch and he felt like Herb was going to kill him. But in the backyard, there was a fire with what looked like human bones. So Mark, instead of running, he just acted like everything was normal, he says. He's like, I'm just gonna, I don't want to...
Man, this story's changing a lot, buddy.
Yeah, and also you saw human bones, like, I'd be fucking running. But then I'm like, okay, maybe I could...
Or I would have tried to go to the bathroom. Something I would have found a reason to get out.
Right, but he's saying, like, I just decided to act like super normal because I didn't want to set something off on Herb. So he says they go back to the pool, and that's where he started feeling like things were getting weird. And he's like, something's definitely wrong with him. But what does Mark do? Instead of running or leaving, he said that he drugged Herb. He drugs him. And then when Herb woke up, he was like, "Oh shit, you're the real stuff." Almost like, you're just as bad as me. The interviewee
What a freak.
Yeah, so the interviewer asks, "Oh, so he said this to you the next morning because you drugged him? Like you're telling me you drugged him?" And he woke up and he was like, "Dang, whatever." He was like kind of copacetic about it. And so Mark starts laughing and he says, "Oh, it doesn't last that long. You've never been drugged? It only lasts about like 40 minutes. While he's laughing, like no joke, he's fucking laughing.
Yo, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's so eerie and strange.
No, that's weird.
And like I said, it doesn't help the fact that he looks like the human version of Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz because I just can't. Which also comes to another question of mine, which I'm like, so you're drugging people? So you bring a drug with you to drug people?
Just so casual.
Yeah, like that to me, like that's probably how you're getting victims. That's maybe how you're...
Again, trust. And then the victims let their guard down because,
obviously
he's
my friend.
Take a
drink.
Yeah,
maybe
I trust
let's come
you.
back
You're not
to...
going to drug the fuck out of me.
Yeah, let's come back to my friend Herb's house at Fox Hollow Farms. Let's do a little fun, whatever, all that shit, right? So I'm like, dude, this guy... I just feel like you're kind of telling us that you're involved.
The killer.
Yeah. He says Herb liked to play games, like reciting things after him. And according to Mark, he says that Herb used to tell him that he needed to recite this. I really like to see the eyes bulging out. I like to see the tongue bulging out, the lips swelling and turning purple and cracking. Which I'm like, what an odd thing to recite, but okay. Like I'm over here thinking like, I pledge the allegiance of the... like that's what I'm thinking of reciting.
Weird, man.
It's weird. So he says that one of the things too that I thought was very interesting is in the interview, he said that Herb told him that he killed 56 people. And Mark says, I just feel so badly because I had every opportunity to just kill him. The fuck?
What?
Yeah, like I'm like, that's just so interesting. So now before you're saying that you were scared, you were all this, then you drugged him, but then you didn't kill him, but then I don't know. Also, why would you kill him? Just call the cops. Just fucking, you don't have to commit murder yourself.
I could have killed him. I could have did it.
Yeah, I just thought that was like another interesting point that he said, right? So they ask him about Herb's videos because from what we learned, Julie even says that Herb is an avid videographer. Like he loves videos, videotaping and all that shit, right? And in the police evidence, they actually found like VCRs situations in Herb's house, and they also found like a VCR copier. So it's like he was making copies or something, right? So it's like weird. They ask him about the videos because he was an avid videographer, and when the investigators were there, police noticed a vent by the pool, up in the ceiling, half open, big enough for a video camera. And they start thinking, that's probably how he keeps his mementos, other than the fact that he had the bones in the backyard. But the tapes, obviously, were never found. And according to Julie, he loved to video. So, like, where are all these tapes?
Where are they?
Right? What's going on with that? Mark, even if you remember in the Jane and Russ documentary video that he talked about, he mentions the fact that, here's what you'll see. Yeah. Here's where he kept all his videos. And when he points at, what he points at in the house that he said Herb kept his videos in was no joke like a wine cellar wall. So videotapes aren't that big.
No.
So imagine
you
he's
could
saying,
store a lot.
Mark claims that Herb showed him some of the videos and that they were graphic, but he doesn't go into really much detail after that. There are certain questions that he wouldn't answer, like I said, like if they were in a relationship or if they had any type of sexual relationship in that sense, he wouldn't answer that. But he does claim that Herb was stalking him, showing up at his grandmother's house, showing up at his house whenever he wanted. And Mark claims that he actually would call the police up to 6 to 7 times a day, but they just wouldn't listen. And to me, I'm like, that's
weird.
Interesting. Yeah. So they actually got to a point where he says that the police told Mark to stop bothering Herb because he was a family man, and apparently this went on for 2 years. But he kept seeing Herb anyways, right? Okay. So the day that they're investigating the farm, when everything was breaking loose and they're finding bones at the farm, Mark claims that Herb went to his house with a gun and was like pissed at Mark. He said that Herb said that Mark betrayed him while they were literally watching the police search his property on the TV. And even though, if you think about it, he did betray him, right?
Yeah.
Why would he say that?
If
you're not a part of that, right?
Yeah.
You're an accomplice, even if you didn't say anything, even if you didn't have nothing to do with it, you knew.
The dude is a walking billboard.
Yes.
I was part of it.
Exactly. But Mark says that he doesn't really see it that way because Herb knew that he was going to go to the police. So to me, I'm just like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I don't even know what you mean by that. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me, but sure. So the interviewer ends up asking him about the box of videotapes, right? And Mark steers away, laughing, saying he's like, I'm not talking about that. Wonder why. Now, this part is wild because Mark said that he wanted to take me down with him. Well, guess what? He's fucking dead, ain't he?
Oh, get the fuck out of here.
Yep, the interview asks, but didn't he kill himself? And Mark's like, well, we'll save that for another goddamn show. I don't want to, or else I'll get 25. I can tell you that at the end of his life, his fingers were round and swollen like sausages. There's no way that he could have pulled that trigger.
And remember, they didn't find a gun either.
Well, the police say they did, but remember the hiker was like, there was no fucking gun. Yep.
But Mark. But Mark could have planted fucking. Oh my god! And that would explain why there was no videotapes. Holy shit!
And why the car was literally. And so to me, when I saw that part of the interview, no joke, I was like, "Is this a confession? Is this a confession?" Like he's straight up just confessing, right?
For real.
To me, I'm just like, dude, what? That to me just tells me that you were in on this and all that,
the whole time, 100%.
And also, I kind of find it interesting because if you think about it, remember everyone's like his suicide note? There was like nothing relevant. Interesting.
Weird.
Right. Interesting and weird. Yeah. Before they interview Mark, Steve Ainsworth tells them to ask about certain people. So the ABC News, like the interviewer and stuff like that, talked to Steve Ainsworth. I mean, obviously they're doing this whole fucking documentary, and they talk to Steve, and they're like, "What should we ask him, and how should we ask him, so we can maybe get some answers?" Because
they also want to help too.
Yeah, and also technically, Steve can't ask any questions because he's just a consultant.
Yep.
So he can't. And he even questions, he's like, why are they not questioning him? Like, why are they not doing anything? But whatever. Steve tells him to ask about certain people to build up the questioning. It's like, how do we ask about Leroy? You know, he said he witnessed a murder where Mark was an accomplice. But when they tell Mark what Leroy said, they read him the statement, like they straight up the same statement that I read you that Leroy said. They read it to him and he acts completely oblivious. He asks, wait, what year was this? And they're like, yeah, it was 95. And he's like, I wasn't in that home with anybody in a raincoat or anything like that. Like, okay, because that's the main focus of the fucking question. That's what everybody wants to know.
Let's get hooked on the raincoat.
Yeah. So he says that Mark ends up insinuating and stating, you know, I don't like, pretty much like he doesn't want to say anything badly about him because he's dead. But he's like, he had mental issues and he's a liar. And I think he might have wanted to do that interview to get some money.
Okay.
Like, okay. Anyways, and in that transcript, Leroy even mentioned and said that he kept having dreams about what happened. So that's why like he kind of wanted to clear his conscience and stuff like that. And Steve Ainsworth, he even talks about with Jeff Jellison, like he talks about the fact that he has a feeling that the reason why he was confessing to things that, I mean, you wouldn't want anybody knowing. And it's not bad about this murder, but it kind of
builds a case of he wouldn't be coming at us telling us all this,
right? And
if it wasn't because he truly genuinely wanted to help,
or this really did happen.
Exactly.
And Steve's like convinced that at this point he's seeing everything that's happening on the news, and so he probably is like, shit, the cops know about me. Like the cops probably know about that murder that I witnessed. So I need to speak up now, and I need to tell them what I know because I don't want to be at all thought as I'm a part of this.
Part of it.
Right. So, which I'm like valid. I totally agree with that. I would definitely see that way too. So then we get towards the end of this interview, right? And at this point, he ends up becoming upset. Like Mark gets upset because they end up asking him about his friend's funeral, which was also one of the victims that I recalled, which was Roger Allen Goodlett.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they mention it, this kind of like really upset Mark, and he got emotional. He's like, I need to step outside. I need to smoke a cigarette, like whatever. He steps outside. He forgets he has his mic on. Yes, he forgets he has his mic on. He steps outside and all you hear him say is, oh, you bastard. Like, why'd you let me live? I'll just never understand.
Holy shit.
Yes. So I'm like, what?
Put me in cuffs, give me 25. Yeah, you know. I didn't do it, though.
Yeah, and a part of me, it's like, I don't know if he's saying this stuff, and because to me, I'm trying to look at it through his eyes, and he's probably seeing it as, man, like, I just couldn't kill him because I'm not that like, this is the story that he's trying to sell, right? He's like, I just couldn't kill him, I'm not that person, but fuck, like, why didn't he just kill me because I couldn't do it, or like, I was a part of this, and I felt like you forced me into doing these, but I'm not buying that either. I don't know, I feel like you're at this point, you're a playing mate.
It almost comes across like maybe he started this and then met Herb and kind of found
someone else who was also.
I think Herb's a little messed up too. I think I could get him in on this.
Right.
And
they build a relationship off of that. Yeah, I know. I agree. I totally agree with you on that. Which, funny that you mentioned, because that leads us into the end of our episode with theories.
Ooh.
So let's talk theories here, right? Because, and it's crazy too, because at the end of that interview, Vicky, which is Rob Graves' wife, she's obviously home. That's her house too. And they show a video of Mark like walking up the stairs, and he's like, Vicky, hi. Now, Rob states in the documentary, he's like, I don't think like he had anything to do with the murders. But again, like they know him a lot better than we do or all this stuff. But honestly, everything builds the case that he was a part of that.
100%.
But anyways, right, everybody's got their own opinions and thoughts. That's fine. And so he ends up like seeing Vicky. He's like, Vicky, you know, they think that I murdered. They think that I was like the murderer and yada yada. And like, they don't understand. Like, I'm too lazy to be a murderer. Like, he's just like joking about it and stuff, right? And so that's it. That's how it ends.
I mean, that's also weird.
Yeah.
So all right, so I got it. Theory 1.
What's your theories? Yeah.
Mark killed him.
Okay, because that's right.
Theory 2.
Okay.
Mark killed him.
Okay.
Theory 3. Mark also killed him.
Okay. So it's valid because I kind of had the same theories there. And that's what leads me to the first theory that's out there. That Mark Goodyear's involvement. And so clearly we've talked about his story and how it keeps changing and how he has all this knowledge that he shouldn't have if he wasn't really that involved, right? I think he wasn't either he was an accomplice. I don't even want to say accomplice because I feel like it doesn't give him enough responsibility.
Either he was an accomplice or a puppeteer.
Yes, which is that's one of the theories too of the fact that he, like, was he the one introducing victims to Herb?
My name's Detective Tom.
Right? So, and that's another thing too that I want to mention is that the interviewers asked him, like, oh, did you ever introduce anyone to Herb? And he was like, I never introduced anyone to Herb, but I did.
Bullshit, but they're all your friends.
He says, I've never introduced anyone to him, but I have introduced Herb to people. And I would actually tell them that he's a killer, but nobody listened to me. I'm like, oh my God. The angel, the saint.
This is probably...
I said it.
I was going to say, this is probably how you phrased it, though. Oh, yeah. My buddy Herb, he's a killer in bed.
Yeah, like, he probably, like... He's like,
then, guess what? I'm saving my ass, because then if I get ever questioned... Oh, I told him he was going to kill him.
I could see that. Yep. I could see that. But that's literally what he says. So it's like maybe he's the one that introduced. I mean, clearly, I have a feeling that he introduced. If we think about that, we said that it was stated that Herb was a socially awkward, all that stuff. So he's at the bar. He's not really interacting with nobody. Remember the bartender said, like,
yeah.
So
he.
Yep. So that's just kind of like, he's just trying to save his own skin. Now, there's the question of Herb's suicide. Was it really a suicide? Or did Mark have something to do with that too? Because the car's stripped. There's no type of trace of the videotapes. The vague, very suicide note and the conflicting reports about the gun. So it all adds up to a lot of unanswered questions. And it kills me too because in the doc, the investigator, the detective that was on the case that day, he's like, oh no, there was a gun. We saw it. But it's also so hard to believe you because of the fact that I don't know if you guys, the PD in Indiana, the county councilman, they just want to probably erase this. So they're probably like, dude, fuck it. Just get, because even at one point.
Just get rid of it.
Yeah. And even at one point, I'm like, maybe the cops had something to do with this too. Because I'm like, I don't know. You guys just didn't want anything to do with anything of this. And it's just such a sad case, such a sad story. All right. So how do you feel about that theory? You do believe that Mark killed him. And so you have to remember too, the amounts of unidentified remains, right? 10,000 bone fragments. Yes. That's a lot of people. Who are they? How many of them? How many victims are we talking about? There's just still so many unanswered questions there, right? Yeah. So many of lives were taken and never accounted for. Now, the last theory is going to blow your fucking mind.
Blow my mind.
I want to mention, because it's just insane, that there's a theory that Herb was also the I-70 strangler. Yep.
Wait, hold on. But Mark's the one that kind of comes off more as the one that actually enjoyed the strangling.
That we know, but we don't know.
I know.
Yeah. Oh,
but
right,
based off everything I'm going,
theory, yeah.
I like where this theory is going, but instead of Herb, I feel like it could have been Mark.
I mean, it could have been, honestly. I feel like Mark and Herb were like two peas in a pod. Yeah. So they think that he might be responsible for the murders of the men along I-70 interstate, right? Because the timelines seem to add up and the MO is sort of similar, but it's never been officially confirmed. Maybe could he have been responsible?
Well, another thing is too, though, think of
how many
dead bodies are in their backyard. I'm just saying, in my opinion, gay or not, Indiana, sure, 20, 30 gay men disappear. They might not bat too many eyes.
Yeah.
But this is 10,000 plus bones.
Yeah.
That's way more than 20 or 30 people.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like, we're talking...
Well, remember, Mark said that apparently Mark told... that Herb
56,
told him 56,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. That's And even that, I'm not great at math right now, but I don't even think that technically adds up. I think that's like 5,200 bones or something like that.
Yeah. No, it's a lot. That's why it's like, who the fuck are all these people?
We're talking over 100.
Yeah. And all we know are from 1993 to 1996.
Yeah.
This could be from years on end. Like, this could have been happening for years. Because, shit, if you were killing that many people in that short amount of time, I think that would raise a lot more red flags.
Yeah.
That's why one of the theories is that he could be the I-70 Strangler. And for some people that don't know, the I-70 Strangler was... We're going to cover this in another episode too, because this is another notorious
For those
case.
that don't know, sorry, tune in.
No, seriously, but small, short backstory. It was a series of murders that happened in the 90s along Interstate 70 spanning from Indiana to Ohio.
Ohio.
The big O. Yeah.
Anyone that lives in Ohio? OH.
Yes, and anybody that lives in Ohio, let me know.
No, that's actually a chant for like people that live in Ohio. Somebody yells OH and then other people yell IO.
Oh, that's funny. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Or they'll be like OH, be like IR.
IR.
So yeah, there's just some similarities there that a lot of people, even though the I-70 Strangler also killed women, but whatever. We'll save that for another episode, okay? Because I'm talk
liking
about
this theory.
Yes, so that's one of the theories. And my theory, right, that I will tell you, clearly, I do believe that Mark might have been the puppeteer. Because go back to the riddle. Not an accomplice, not a victim, never attacked. What am I? To me, you're pretty much saying I'm the one that called the shots.
I'm the ringleader. Yeah.
I'm the ringleader. So what am I, right? Also, why the fuck are you sending me riddles, bro?
Yeah, that's fucking
Don't
weird.
fucking text me with that shit. I'd be so fucking mad. I'd be like, what are you saying? Report? Like, I don't know. But that's why to me, I'm like, what are you?
Yeah.
You can't be anything that you're stating because that's the riddle. So I'm connecting the dots. You're the one in charge.
Yep.
Okay. Even to this today, the case remains open, and the tireless work of identifying the remains continues, driven by the dedication of individuals like Jeff Jellison and Steve Ainsworth. In fact, just recently, they conducted a cadaver dog search at Fox Hollow Farms, and even after all these years, 30 plus years, they're still finding bones.
Jesus
Think
Christ,
about that.
man.
Yep. Over 30 years since these crimes occurred, and the search for the answers continue. As we bring this episode to a close, we wanted to be crucial about this and remember the individuals whose lives were tragically cut short at Fox Hollow Farms. And we want to take some time out right now just to say their names. John Lee Johnny Bayer, 20, went missing on May 28th, 1993. Jeffrey Allen Jeff Jones, 31, went missing on July 6, 1993. Richard Douglas Hamilton Jr., 20, went missing on July 31st, 1993. Alan Lee Livingston, 27, also went missing on August 6, 1993. His remains were recovered, as I mentioned, in the initial search of the farm in 1996, but remained unidentified until October of 2023. Stephen Sperlin Hale, 28, went missing on April 1st, 1994. Alan Wayne Brozard, 28, went missing on June 6, 1994. Roger Allen Goodlett, 33, went missing on July 22nd, 1994. Michael Frederick Kern, known as Mike, 45, last seen on March 31st, 1995. Manuel Resendez, 34, last seen at a gay bar in downtown Indianapolis on August 6th of 1993. And so I just want us to take a quick moment of silence for them. It's important to understand that due to the nature of these horrific crimes and the state of the remains, the exact number of victims may never be fully known. There are still thousands of bone fragments that investigators are working to identify. These victims and all those we don't know yet deserve to be remembered by their names, by who they were, and not by their maker. So may the victims of Herb Baumeister rest in peace, and may their families, after decades of suffering, be able to find some measure of peace. Thank you for joining us today on Macabre Mondays. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts.
We'd love to hear from you. If you have a story that's strange, sinister, or downright spooky, send it our way. You can email us at macabremondayspodcast@gmail.com or head over to macabremondays.com to submit your story. yours just might be featured in an upcoming listener episode.
Follow us on social media by searching Macabre Mondays for photos of today's episode, updates, and a little extra spooky fun. We'll see you next Monday for another sinister, strange, and spooky episode. I know this was a heavy episode, but it had to be told. Until then, stay curious and stay safe. Bye, everyone.
See ya.
Now, before we wrap up, as usual, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the incredible work of the journalists, investigators, and the researchers who helped bring the story to light. Putting together an episode like this takes a lot of digging, and we relied on some amazing sources. First off, a huge thank you to Tim Fitzsimmons for his in-depth article on the AIDS pandemic for NBC News. That piece really helped us understand the climate of fear and stigma during the time. You can find it at nbcnews.com. Of course, we couldn't have done this episode without the Hulu documentary that I kept referencing, The Fox Hollow Murders: Playground of a Serial Killer. It provided invaluable footage, interview, and up-to-date information that really brought this case to life. We also relied heavily on the detailed work of Charles Montaldo. His article, Herb Baumeister, Serial Killer, on ThoughtCo gave us crucial insights into Baumeister's background and early life. You can find that on thoughtco.com. Beyond those, we pulled information from various news archives, including CBS News, People.com, and local Indianapolis news sources. These helped us fill in the gaps and provide a more complete picture of the investigation. A big thank you as well to the hard work of the Hamilton County Coroner's Office and investigators such as Jeff Jellison and Steve Ainsworth and all the other investigators that took the time out to actually take this case. I know that these images that you saw probably weren't that easy. So their continued dedication to this case is truly inspiring, and I'm sure a lot of the families, just like everyone else who is learning about these cases, are very appreciative of this as well. We believe in giving credit where credit is due always, because these stories and cases wouldn't see the light of day like they all deserve. It just wouldn't be possible without the hard work of so many people, especially these authors, journalists, the police departments, and the researchers. So thank you guys.